$79,000 at stake, and Arthur Ashe, we got two players here who have a lot to prove because they've been looking at Andre Agassi and Michael Chang and Pete Sampras taking all the credit up to now.
You're right, a lot to prove, but to whom? You can talk about David Wheaton's serve, you can talk about Jim Courier's tenacity. Throw all the numbers, all the stats out of the door, out the window. What matters is these two guys have known each other for a long time. There's only 1 year that separates them, 21 and 20. They don't want to lose to one another. That's what it matters.
Among others, David Wheaton beat Andre Agassi here in this championship. He beat him 6-love in the first set. Andre Agassi still not playing well. He has not won a tournament this year yet. This is David Wheaton against Agassi in the round of 16 here.
And he is continuing his serve and volley style. This after a disastrous start to 1991, 0-4.
In the semifinal, David Wheaton playing against the #1 player in the world, Stefan Edberg. He beat him in a big surprise, 6-3, 6-4, behind a big, big serve.
What surprised me most, it was straight sets. And he commanded the net as he did right there on match point.
On the other side of the draw, Jim Courier had a relatively easy way through this championship. He beat, among others, Guy Forget, the #4 player in the world now from France, and this was his semifinal match against Richie Renneberg of Houston.
This is played at night. That forehand drop volley for match point put him right here today.
So it is Jim Courier and David Wheaton, both of the USA, who will play in our championship match here as the final of the Lipton Players Championship, and the players are just about to get on the court. Who are you going to pick, Arthur?
Well, if you had to put a gun to my head, I'm going to say Jim Courier. I think he's a hot player right now. He's 11-match win streak, and he wants to win this tournament to solidify the fact that he is not a fluke.
Also working with us today is Pam Shriver. And Pam, as I was just saying to Arthur, what an opportunity for these two guys. Of course, David Wheaton coming in here unseeded. He's won 6 matches, and he has a chance here to go all the way. What a chance.
That's right. And this tournament is most like the Grand Slam formats. It's a 128 draw for those who are not seeded in the tournament. There are 32 seeds in this tournament. So the people who do well in this event, they think they're going to have a lot of confidence later on in the Grand Slams, much like Monica Seles proved last year.
Then we've got two players here, relatively different characteristics. You've got David Wheaton, who's such a big serve and volley expert, and then you've got Jim Courier, who says, I'm going to stalk the baseline like he stalks the net.
That's right. So it's a lot of fun. It's sort of like the way when Chris and Martina used to play all the time. It's the contrasting styles. And so you're going to see how Jim Courier's going to hit his passing shots. How many lobs is he going to use today and get over David Wheaton, who's about 6'4"? And Wheaton, if he does get caught in the baseline, how is he going to hang in there against Courier's ground strokes?
We will find out when they take the court. Another quick question for you, Pam. The prize money, of course, is a big factor, but there are also IBM ATP points at stake here, and that's almost as important to these players as the money, isn't it?
Probably more important. These guys are both very young. They've already earned more money than what they can spend at this point in their lives. They don't have wives or kids to support. So it's really the ranking. They want to get where Agassi is, and Edberg, and Becker, and Lendl. And in a couple of years, they may very well be in there. Two very talented players. It's going to be a very close, exciting match.
You're going to pick a winner?
Well, I think if Wheaton hits his big serve, it's a calm day, he can win it.
It is certainly going to be interesting to see. It is a final, the championship match here at the Lipton. It is going to be Jim Courier and David Wheaton. Courier seeded 13. David Wheaton unseeded going into this championship. And it's up next. Now back to you, Brent.
Finals of one of the most prestigious events of the game, the Lipton International Players Championships. Next.
$150,000 for a week's work in Munich in December at the Grand Slam Cup. Today he takes on Jim Courier, who's on an 11-match winning streak after a win at Indian Wells. Two of the best young talent from the USA face off in today's Lipton final live. It is partly cloudy, but no chance of rain this afternoon for the men's singles final. A very warm greeting to you, everybody, from Key Biscayne as you watch our live coverage of the men's singles. What happened to the seeds in this championships? Well, 12 of them are out. Stefan Edberg beat the #7 seed Emilio Sanchez to get to the semifinal, then lost to David Wheaton, and he will play Jim Courier, who beat Richie Renneberg in the semifinals. Of the 50 top players in the world, 11 are Americans. Jim Courier is seeded now, or ranked rather, #18 in the world. David Wheaton ranked #46. So, Arthur Ashe, the days of the death knell that everybody was sounding for American tennis are over.
Well, you're right. 5 years ago, we were wondering who's going to take Jimmy Connors and John McEnroe's place. Well, the American pretenders are to be found possibly among that list. However, a long way to go, and the USTA's Player Development Committee is working on that right now.
And how about Jimmy Courier? He's had a great couple of weeks, hasn't he? I guess he's on an 11-match winning streak, Arthur, and he won the Indian Wells tournament 2 weekends ago.
Well, he's the hottest American player right now, hottest player in the world. I first saw him 1986-87 in the final of the Orange Bowl, right here, just about 10 minutes away in Miami Beach. Very tenacious. I think that describes him best. I think he has a slight edge today.
What's he got to do to win?
I think a lot of his chances have to do with David Wheaton's serve. If David Wheaton gets 60% or better of his first serves in, trouble for Jim Courier.
Now let's find out about David Wheaton, or more about him anyway, from Pam Shriver. He won $450,000, Pam, at the Grand Slam Cup last year, but since then it's kind of been downhill for him.
That's right, Cliff, but also last year David Wheaton got to the quarterfinals of 2 Grand Slam events, the Australian Open and the U.S. Open. This year he was 0-4 coming into this Lipton Championships, but now he's won 6 straight matches, including 2 big wins over top 5 players, #1 in the world, Stefan Edberg, in the semis, and of course Agassi earlier in the tournament. He also had a match point against him against Kevin Curran.
He was kind of lucky to get through that one. What's he got to do to win today, Pam?
Well, I agree with Arthur that David Wheaton's serve is a key to this match, because if he doesn't have a big day serving, how is Wheaton going to dictate the play against Courier's big ground strokes? Also, Wheaton's forehand side can get a bit dodgy, whereas Courier's very well balanced off both sides. Forehand's maybe a little bigger on Courier.
Who's going to do it?
Oh, I think Wheaton's got a good shot. It's calm, it's not windy, and big servers like a calm day.
A deep breath from you, a deep breath from all of us as we watch live this men's singles final here at the Lipton between Jim Courier and David Wheaton, both of the USA.
Nice tea.
This is the stadium court, and it'll be jammed with nearly 13,000 people for this final between Jim Courier and unseeded David Wheaton. It's actually the youngest championship final of this tournament's 7-year history. 21-year-old Wheaton and 20-year-old Jim Courier. Jim Courier, 20 years old, as was said, 6'1" from Dade City, Florida now, and he's very proud of his hometown.
Certainly is. Local boy.
David Wheaton's not. He's from Minnesota. 21 years old, as we said. 6'4", big guy. He has a big reach, and people who play against him must feel like he's serving out of a tree. The second All-American final here since 1985, when Tim Mayotte beat Scott Davis after Scott Davis won the first 2 sets. It's the second All-American final of the year on this year's IBM ATP Tour. The other one played between the McEnroes, John and Patrick, in Chicago. They've only played once as professionals. They also played twice as juniors. Arthur?
Both in 1987. And they split.
It was in 1989 at Stratton Mountain, where David Wheaton beat Jim Courier. He also beat Andre Agassi there, one of his better results in his professional career. Richard Kaufman is in the chair for today's match. He's one of the professional umpires on the tour. It is an honor to be selected for this championship, which, Arthur, I would characterize now as the second most important tournament in the United States after the U.S. Open.
Well, what lends credence to your statement is that it has a Grand Slam format, and that it is played over more than just 1 week period. Of course, if you ask some of the other tournament directors that, they're going to disagree with you, but certainly this is a big, big event, and of course they're going to put in a permanent stadium here very, very soon.
$179,000 to the winner here. $94,000 is what they have already pocketed for getting to the final. Best of 3 sets, Courier serving.
And we're going to be keeping a look at the watch on the IBM radar gun today as well. See who gets over 120 miles per hour on their serve. Well, now, a very inauspicious start for Jim Courier, who is serving from the south end of the court.
That is his 5th double fault of the tournament. Very unusual for him, but of course the tension in the air is fierce.
He's got such a quick draw on both forehand and backhand sides. Quite a contrast today, too, Cliff, from the women's final yesterday, which at this time was over. Women's final at 1 o'clock. Today is much cooler, slightly more humid.
Before this whole thing started, we asked Arthur to take a look and compare these two players. Here's what he came up with.
And I didn't want to answer. Obviously, the service department got to go with Wheaton. Return to serve, got to go with Courier. Net play, Wheaton, that's his game. Ground strokes and intangibles, Jim Courier. So I think it gives Jim a slight edge. But
what were the intangibles in your mind, Arthur?
Well, in my mind, playing in front of a friendly crowd, he's on a hot streak. And I think Wheaton's got to serve well. He hasn't played very well. He's 0-4 coming to this tournament for 1991.
30 all here in the first game. It's interesting that we talk so much about the serve of David Wheaton. But he has been broken quite a few times. He has been extraordinarily successful in breaking serves. In 6 matches, matter of fact, he has broken serve 15 times. Pam Shriver's at courtside. It's a beautiful day, isn't it, Pam, for tennis?
It is. Actually, the temperature is probably as warm as it was yesterday, but it's a little calmer, and just by the fact that it's 3 hours later in the day, it won't be, the sun won't be anywhere near as damaging, whereas yesterday, Monica Seles left the court with heat exhaustion.
He didn't close in. Jim Courier coming in following that approach shot, stopped a little too short. Had he taken about another step and a half toward the net, probably would have gone over.
How successful he is here on the second serve of Courier could decide this match. And he gets to break point in the first game. Pam Shriver, by the way, is just about 3 steps from the chair umpire before she could shake his hands. Very close to the action.
That's right. When they both walked out on the court, David Wheaton made Jim Courier wait before they went up for the coin toss. It looked like a little bit of psychological warfare going on.
Break point.
Well, David Wheaton just took a chance there. He had the ad. He thought, oh, let's just take a shot here and see if I can scare Jim Courier into making an error. But no luck.
Well, it's the kind of shot that if it hits where, I mean, if it lands where his return landed, you're in trouble. But
yes,
if you get it in deep,
that wasn't deep enough.
Yeah, exactly.
You're right.
Deuce, first game.
Yes. Caught him almost a half volley back at the baseline and could have gone anywhere. And look where Jim Courier stood. He stood on the backhand side of the court. And Wheaton went right down the line. And that is a high percentage shot.
And Wheaton's backhand, he can do anything with it. It's a gorgeous shot.
Second serve break point, first game. That return was a lot deeper, and David Wheaton has broken in the first game of this best of 3-set final match at the lift. Leading 1 game to love with the break. It's 15 love. Top spin lob for the winner. 15 all in this game. Got off to a good start, didn't he?
Certainly did. Huge first serve, and now Courier with that open stance topspin forehand can do one of several things. Go cross court, passing shot down the line, lob to either side. He chose the lob. Very quick first step. Jim Courier. Interesting build for someone who's 6'1". He doesn't look like he's 6'1", but he's got a low center of gravity, so he moves like someone who's about 5'10". Again, open stance forehand with the top spin. Wheaton really doesn't know where it's going to go. He has to guess.
Courier will play Herrera again. Herrera from Mexico in the Davis Cup next weekend as the USA faces off against Mexico. Then Paul Haarhuis in 3 sets. Haarhuis from Holland, of course. In the 4th round, Guy Forget for the 2nd time in 2 tournaments. Derek Rostanya in the quarterfinal. And Richie Renenberg from Houston in straight sets in the semis. Courier named to the Davis Cup team this week by Captain Tom Gorman. Brad Gilbert will also play singles. Going down to Mexico City, and in the doubles, of course, Rick Leach and Jim Pugh of the USA, who played all of last year. Haven't lost a match yet, those two in doubles.
No.
Playing on a hard court at the Germantown Club.
Yes, Club Alemán in Mexico City, 7,500 feet in the air. Should be very interesting for Courier, I think.
Because of the altitude, you mean?
Yes, I don't think he has ever played in a place that high. And I've played Davis Cup there lots of times against Mexico.
We better get over there pretty soon.
Yes, it's
acclimatized.
Can't catch your breath, and the ball just sails.
Break back here for Jim Courier. It's 1 game, all first set.
Wheaton, I think, is going to be looking to run around his backhand to hit forehand returns quite often, especially on the forehand side.
David Wheaton is going to improve that 46 ranking dramatically. He'll be in the 20s somewhere. You know, when you beat guys like Stefan Edberg and Andre Agassi, who are in the top 5 players in the world, you get bonus points.
Yes.
That's why the big jump for Wheaton.
Yeah. Points depend on how far you win in the tournament, whether you beat a seed, whether it's a highly ranked ATP player, and how big the tournament is as far as prize money is concerned.
That would be the biggest official paycheck for either one of these two players today. $179,000. $30.15. Courier picked up $125,000 March 10 at Indian Wells 2 Sundays ago. But David Wheaton's $450,000, the Grand Slam Cup, makes that all look like change. He beat Lendl there. Game point to Jim Courier.
There are 2 ways to look at it. One, you can say that David Wheaton is trying to find the range, and if he finds it with those flat ground strokes, Courier's going to be in trouble. Another way to look at it, of course, is that he's being a bit too risky.
Game point. First serve. Courier is very effective even on a second serve. He's much higher than most players on the tour. Over 60% of points that he wins on the second serve. So even when he misses the first, it's not as sad as for most players who miss the first serve. Oh. I don't know about that. You've got to stay away from that backhand.
Well, it's a two-handed shot, and obviously a natural advantage for anything with 2 hands is that you disguise it. You don't know where it's going to the last minute.
See how close he keeps those elbows into the side. 114 mile-an-hour serve didn't help Jim Courier. Game point.
I'm interested to see if anyone goes over 120 today. Very seldom does anyone do that. Sampras does it with regularity. Oh, double fault number 2 in this match.
Second double fault deuce here in this third game. Marc Rosset of Switzerland is the man who hit the ball harder, not only this week, but actually all year at 132 miles per hour.
Better check that radar gun.
And of course, double faults are brought on because you know your opponent's going to attack any second serve. So now here's another big second serve coming up. Wheaton's going to be all over it. Right now he's telling the ball girl what to do with them.
And he may run around his backhand. That is incredible. Courier just got that forehand retrieved back across the net onto the line. And Wheaton slid it cross-court about as deep as you could slide it right here without it going out. Again, Courier with a lot of options, but he hit a perfect, gently hip topspin lob right over the forehand side of Wheaton. Oh, Wheaton, I'm sure, thought he had that point won.
Game point.
Just long.
Courier's only lost his serve 6 times here in 5 matches. He's lost his serve once already here, the first serve game of the match. But he's held on now, so we're on serve at 2-1 in the first set. Best of 3 sets for the championship here at the Lipton. Return is long. This is 2-1 for Jim Courier on serve. 2 breaks traded by these players in the first 2 games of the match. Then Courier held. Wheaton serving 1-2, 15 love.
And that's a smart serve against a two-hander, that jammer. Really handcuffed Courier.
Both of these players, Pam, involved with the USTA Player Development Program.
That's right. David Wheaton, though, doesn't have a coach here at the moment. He has his whole family here, but Courier has 2 coaches here. Jose Higueras, who was with Courier in Palm Springs, and also Brad Stein, both with the USTA Player Development. Both are coaches with him. And Courier's coming over to change rackets. He has not broken a string, but he doesn't like the tension. Well, he took out 2 other rackets, so this is the 3rd racket he's looked at.
And you see him, Pam, tucking the handle under his arm to get it wet, which you would think is rather silly, but the grips the players use these days actually are a bit more effective when they are a little damp. Got to move through it, David.
Here are the Wheatons. Bruce in the cap in the middle of your screen. There is brother John.
In the green cap.
Yeah.
Known the family for a long time. First met David when he was 12 years old.
Service on the line, and that's game to Wheaton. 114 miles an hour.
That's right down Broadway.
Clipped the outside edge.
Yes, very much so.
One of the sadder episodes for David Wheaton was his effort at the Grand Slam Cup. After he got to the semi-final, he lost to Brad Gilbert. They nearly got into a fight.
It started at Wimbledon on court number 1. I'll never forget that.
Then they had to play against each other again. The first round of the Australian Open, Gilbert beat him again.
It's unfortunate. However.
But he's usually a very placid, pleasant guy.
Right in the corner.
David Wheaton had to play all the way from the first round because he's unseeded in this tournament. He beat Jimmy Grab in 3 sets. Then Perez Roldano had to pull out with an injury. He had 4 games all in the first set. Then Kevin Curran, that's the one where Curran had match points in the second set. And finally Wheaton came back, won it in the tiebreaker. Straight sets over Agassi, 3 sets over Karate of Italy, and then Edberg in straight sets in the semifinal. Long.
And that's a lot of tennis if you're an unseeded player in this tournament, because, again, it's a 128 draw, which is the same as all the Grand Slams, but they started this tournament on the Friday. So you only have 9 days to play those 7 matches, and if it rains a couple of days, you have to play a lot of tennis. But, of course, this is not 3 out of 5 sets here, unlike the Grand Slams for the men.
Shriver, by the way, beat Laura Gildermeister here in the third round, who was seeded number 13 before going out to Mary Jo Fernandez. But Pam, you're right. It's interesting because you have 128 draws that's got to be played in 10 days as against 14 days. So as you say, no rest for the weary. It's tough.
And in the women's side of things, of course, the finals are played a day
Saturday.
even earlier, so you only have 8 days. So if someone does get through from the draw of 128, they're just playing just about every single day.
Now there is where David Wheaton needs to work, and as we watch Jose Higueras, who lives in Palm Springs, Jim Courier's coach, also helped Michael Chang. Quite a few players sent to him by the USTA Player Development Committee.
Smart player.
Yeah, oh,
Good
yes.
head on him.
Yeah. Great clay court player.
Defensive style player, never missed a ball. When you played against him, boy,
you knew you were going to be out there all day.
And Jose just flew in yesterday, and to Jose's right is Brad Stein, also coach of Jim Courier, who has been with Jim all week long and been warming him up for all his matches.
Oh, that was inside the line net.
And Brad Stein, you see there in the green cap, and Jose sitting alongside him. Very unusual for a player to have two coaches here.
This looks like an overrule, Pam. That ball was definitely good.
No, this is break point.
Yes.
He was concerned about a call before that, Arthur. There was no doubt that was in.
Okay. From where we sit, we cannot see the linespersons behind Jim Courier, so I didn't know whether it was called in or out.
Break point at 2-all first set. So a double fault from Jim Courier, and he has been broken twice in this match already. We'll be back to the Lipton Players Championship after this. With Arthur Ashe and Pam Shriver, we're watching the finals of the Lipton on Key Biscayne. Jim Courier has been broken twice. This is David Wheaton serving, leading 3-2 first set. When they change ends, the two players have a different attitude. This is from the same camera. David Wheaton is facing away from the sun. You can just see Jim Courier, Arthur, saying, I don't care about the sun. He's that kind of a guy.
I don't think he's doing it just to be contrary to David Wheaton, but he is a Southern Florida resident.
I thought they were going to play musical chairs, actually.
Very solid personality, Jim Courier. Hits the ball very hard. He said he's calmed down his act a little bit because of what his coach told him. Higueras said to him as you watch that double fault from David Wheaton's 15-all now in this game, he said, Higueras says, you use up so much energy. He was much more animated always, you know, and he'd give it the fist pump. And he said, look, save that. Just concentrate on the match at hand. And he said he's done that, and it's helped him a lot.
David Wheaton closing in very well on that high forehand volley, which he hit very hard and had a forehand drop volley return. Ace.
An ace from David Wheaton, 40-15.
So 4 games ago, David Wheaton had an early break and was unable to hold serve from the same end. Now 2 game points. Looks like he's going to consolidate the break.
Courier said that he expects David to serve big and be all over the net, and I hope to serve big and be all over the baseline. Got a good sense of humor.
Good shot. When David Wheaton talks about improving his footwork, I think what he most thinks of is being able to backpedal a bit better than he does now.
Moves well once he gets going, doesn't he?
Yes, but always difficult for someone that tall to move backwards.
And that's 4 points that the lob has won for Jim Courier. That's an entire game, and it's only 3-2 in the first set.
This is game point for the server, Wheaton. That's a very solid volley. He worked with Stan Smith just before the Indian Wells tournament, and there's a lot of similarities between the two boys, both in personality and the way that they play, in height. As you watch this replay, Wheaton again. Solid volley. Keeps the racket head up. And
right. Nothing fancy.
Good mechanics.
You got that great a wingspan. Just get it back.
The lob works again, and the aggressive style of David Wheaton has paid dividends for him, and we asked about this new, more aggressive way of playing.
Being aggressive is the main thing for me. You know, once I get into a kind of a counter-punching style, I really I don't do well when I'm just trying to kind of work the ball around. I do well when, you know, I just execute my shots, and whether the guy's standing there or not, you know, it doesn't matter. If I'm executing my shots, I think it's going to be pretty tough for him.
That is just long, so 30-15 in this game, with Wheaton leading 4 games to 2.
That is a little bit like the Boris Becker philosophy, that I'm just going to go for it, but I'm going to get the ball in enough times to really make it worth it. And yes, I'm going to have a probably higher than normal percentage of unforced errors, but so what?
Puts a lot of pressure on people playing against him, doesn't it? 109 mile-an-hour ace from Courier.
Yes, right down the middle.
Frustrating to play against somebody that you know all they're going to do is just bang the heck out of everything.
New rhythm. No rhythm.
Exactly.
Who'd you know played like that?
We had a lot of them in our day as well. We'll get back to that, folks. 4 games to 3. Wheaton will serve when we come back, and he has a break and match. 4 games to 3. Wheaton with a breaker serve in the first set. Best of 3 sets. I'm Cliff Drysdale with Arthur Ashe and Pam Shriver. I hope you're enjoying this match alongside us. It's Love 15.
And Wheaton serving now with new balls. And just before the start of the game, he was about to serve, and Courier said, "New balls?" Because it's always customary for the server to show the receiver that there were new balls, and Wheaton hadn't done that yet.
Customary, Pam, yes, but not
obligatory, is it?
Not obligatory, no.
By the way, Arthur, to answer your question earlier about who in our day played this kind of tennis, Stan Smith, I think, did for one. I think John Newcombe did. And then John Alexander, you remember him, both Australians, and I'm going to put you in that category too. Are
you kidding me?
No, I'm not used to bang it.
It was a finesse play.
You were and won the big final against Jimmy Connors at Wimbledon. That was a finesse play, 15-all. Second double fault from David Wheaton. Tim Mayotte won the inaugural event here. And then Ivan Lendl, Miloslav Mechia. You haven't seen much of him, have you? Mats Wilander, who's on a tour now in Sweden with his band called Wilander. Haven't got too good a reviews, apparently, to start out with. Ivan Lendl won it 2 years ago. And Andre Agassi beat Stefan Edberg in last year's final here. tennis tour, that is, of Sweden, a musical tour.
Well, needs something to take his mind off tennis right now. Was #1 on the ATP computer, I think, for 3 weeks.
After winning the US Open, and then he lost it after the Australian Open the following year, 3 years ago.
Big point coming up here, gang. It's 30-all, 4-3. Wheaton does want to get down a break point.
Fault on the first serve, and Wheaton shrugging his shoulders, looking at Richard Kaufman in the chair in case he might get an overrule, but he didn't impress Richard. Second serve. Kind of shot off it, but I feel like you will see Jimmy Courier making probably 7 out of 10 times. But because he's up there against this guy with a big reach, he's going maybe for a little more than he should.
Well, as we were saying the last game, with that wingspan that Wheaton has, it's intimidating.
Solid volley from David Wheaton. He hangs on and leads 5-3 in the first set.
Wheaton tossing the ball up at around 12 o'clock. Much better on the volley when he moves through the ball. Most of the time when he misses that first volley is because he comes to a stop or he slows down. When he moves through it, he is very effective.
Made contact with that ball. He was 3 or 4 feet inside the serve line, which is good. Courier's in trouble.
Yes, he is. And Wheaton is, as we talked about the 2 alternatives earlier, has found the range enough. I think Courier's even psychologically rattled a little bit.
Ooh. Ooh.
What?
Courier just asked Wheaton what he's doing. What he's doing. He was jumping.
Yes, he moves around a lot, Pam. He always does that.
Right. Well, I was just going to relay what Courier was saying, because there is definitely some tension down here.
Dangerous approach shot to hit the ball with topspin when you hit it behind the service line for an approach, but he got away with it.
They spent time together, these two, at Volunteers Academy up in Bradenton, Florida, and played against each other a lot.
A zillion times in practice, I would imagine, although just twice as juniors and once on the pro tour.
In matches, right. 15-all. Now 30-15. 112 miles an hour on that first serve from Courier. But only 30. That's hurting Courier. 35%. About average for Wheaton.
Well, we were looking to see if Wheaton stays over 60.
40-15. Courier coming in. There's no doubt, is there, Arthur, that if you play against a very aggressive player, you tend to come in more yourself to take the net away.
Yes, and there is for David Wheaton the touch shot, a topspin forehand. He tried to dip past Courier, but Courier saw it coming.
Game point. And that flying forehand from Wheaton, and Courier wins the game. Wheaton will serve for the set when we come back. Jim Courier leading 5-4 in the first set. It's 15 love. First serve.
Now, let's see what he does with this one. Graham, he stayed back on that one, and that's why I said, let's see what he does on this one. I just felt that he felt he had to change his normal style of play, which was serve volley, down or head 15, and didn't look so confident right there on second serve.
Well, it's always a big test when you serve for the set in a big championship match. Next 2 points, of course, are huge as well. He'd love to get up 40-15.
These are the sorts of things, Cliff, that other coaches pick up. What do you do when things are real tight? Those are the things you draw a circle around.
Yeah, there are keys that the players use sometimes to keep themselves calm. Oh, what a volley from Wheaton. Beautiful coverage and then excellent execution. Drop volley off a swing as hard as that one from Courier, and you have good control.
It certainly was a half volley, and he moves to his right. That was well planned, well executed.
Do you think David Wheaton knew that that was maybe Jim Courier's favorite shot with that particular forehand?
Well, I think when you're tall, you've got to commit yourself one way or the other. I think he just sort of said, I'll move to my right.
Set point and set to David Wheaton. First set of his best-of-3 set final match here at the Lipton, and David Wheaton, unseeded going into this tournament, is ahead. He has already beaten Andre Agassi here. He beat Stefan Edberg, the #1 player in the world, and truthfully, both of those guys didn't look like they were going to make an impression on Wheaton, and eventually didn't.
There's a coaching retinue for David Wheaton. Stan Smith seated right behind David's brother there. Saw him this morning watching his son over the Easter Bowl. 15 minutes.
David's brother John is his agent as well.
They always say tennis is a family sport.
Well, very much so. There's Stan Smith, who's the USTA Director of Coaching, former Davis Cupper, U.S. Open, Wimbledon. Yes. No. Crowd agrees with it.
It's jammed here, by the way. About 13,000 in attendance today. New stadium is planned for 1993 here at the Lipton Players Championship. It will be permanent for about 8,000 seats, and then an additional, what is another 8,000 to make about 16. Love, North Carolina advancing to the Final Four over Temple, 75-72 earlier today. Halftime score now, Duke and St. John's, 40-26, with Duke ahead.
Dropped in. Miss hit, but it counts. 40-15. Not pretty off the wood or the graphite. I'll take it.
Was that Courier saying to Wheaton, tell me when you're ready? Game point.
Actually, I didn't quite hear that one. It's evidently what he did say, though. Tell me when you're ready. Courier's concentration's nowhere near as tough today as Wheaton's. Might be a good reason why he dropped the first set.
Billy, it's just difficult to play against a guy like Wheaton. He puts you in a bad mood in a hurry because, as you say, you get no rhythm playing against him.
No, you don't.
You're at his mercy.
But you also have to ask the guy who plays as well, why was he ranked number 46?
He'll be ranked in the 20s after this tournament. Jimmy Courier wins the first game of the second set. We'll be back to the Lipton Players Championship after this. The Lipton Players Championship, he leads at 15 love in this game, trailing love to trailing 1-0 in the second set, but he won the first.
Got the racket head up too slowly. The first things you tell juniors who are learning to hit the overhead to get the racket head up on the overhead real fast, because the ball comes down so quickly.
Trouble with that shot, Arthur, it really wasn't a high lob. It was more like a high volley. It was an in-between shot, and that's exactly what it looked like David Wheaton's mind was. He was very in-between.
Nevertheless, preparation was very slow. Too slow.
First serve percentages for Courier not too good, Arthur.
No, not very good at all. Below 50%, which you really don't want to have on a cement court in particular, but two that I like. Winners and unforced errors. Wheaton certainly leading the winners department. That has made the difference today.
43 minutes for that first set. We're in the early stages of the second set.
I was about to say, the point before that, Courier's backhand was just not on track today, and all of a sudden he comes through with one. He's going to go right back at the same side as Wheaton had sort of leaned to his right.
That was definitely a line drive double to right field.
.40-30 to Wheaton. Take a look at this backhand here of Jim Courier's. Looked a little bit like a baseball swing, doesn't it? We asked him about it.
It comes from playing baseball and tennis when I was a youngster, and I kind of combined the two swings because when I would come back from tennis and start playing baseball, I wouldn't be able to hit for the first couple of games, and vice versa. Coming back from baseball, I couldn't hit a tennis ball to save my life, so I said, well, I'll just make it simple and put them both together, then I'll never lose either of them.
Interesting, isn't it? Yes. He had 2 seasons in his year. One was a baseball season, and one the tennis season, and it still shows. Well, he just lost that game to David Wheaton, so we're at 1 game only in the second set.
Well, of course, if you grow up in Minnesota, as David Wheaton has, for sure you played hockey as a kid. And he's been slapping the ball around the court today.
Well, Courier's concentration's going from bad to worse. After he missed the first serve, he looked at Rich Kaufman and said, a lot of bad calls, Rich, and then he's shaking his head after he lost the point. He's got to get his mind in this match soon. We're not talking 3 out of 5 sets here. He's only got 1 more set.
Love 15.
Well, Pam, that's what David Wheaton said he did not want to do, to get into some baseline rallies with Courier. But Courier also, when he is serving, needs to step back a couple of yards very quickly after serving, because Wheaton is catching him, hitting his returns very deep, and Courier's just trying to hit the ball back with a half volley. Not working right now.
15 all. Courier for the winner, 30-15 in this game at 1 game all in the second set.
That open stance, topspin forehand, and Wheaton hits this backhand drop shot. Guesses to his right, ball went to his left.
One of the worst drop shots, incidentally, I've seen in a while. It bounced almost on the service line and was way too high.
Of David Wheaton, and you know, the supposed weakness of Wheaton, Arthur, has always been his forehand, but it's looked very good this week.
Well, it certainly has. It's spent the first couple of games in this match trying to find the range, and he did. Coming out, he hit this thing cross court.
Knew the minute he hit it, he made a mistake.
That's right. Ringling Brothers had to sign him up, flipping it like that, and he catches it.
30-all, 1 game all.
I'm not sure why David Wheaton decided to attack the forehand of Courier on that particular point. Would have been smarter to keep the ball up the line to the backhand.
Another race from Jim Courier, and he leads 2-1 second set. Trailing 2-1 second set, he won the first. Love 15 in this game.
Move through it, David. Guess his brother or coaches would tell him on the first volley.
Here's what happened early today here on ABC. The Barcelona Dragons over the New Jersey Knights by 19-7. So Barcelona drawing first blood next. Played exhibition matches at Wembley Stadium and jammed the place years prior to this. 15-all.
Pulled way wide. Courier again could go any place he wanted. Decided to go over the high part of the net down the line. Wheaton stuck a racket out as if he had an épée in his hand. Didn't do any
for
good.
Courier, yeah.
Wheaton wants a towel.
30-all.
It's so frustrating for the receiver when you do have a little opening, 15-30, and the server hits such a huge serve, gets a free point, now it's 30-all.
Just what I was thinking, Pam. It's frustrating to play against a player who plays like Wheaton. It's just tough. He's got so much power, and he keeps boring in. I mean, you know what he's going to do. It's a matter of trying to find the solution. It's no secret. Video. Wheaton runs it down, but it's called long. Break point for Courier.
Called just out by the baseline umpire.
30-40. Courier comes in and hits a forehand drop volley, and the ball looked from here as if it were on the line. He's backing up furiously.
That's the junior call. That's the call he would have made in the Orange Bowl a couple of years ago.
Or if you're a senior, if you're over 65, just long.
1 out of 1. Courier has converted. Wheaton 2 out of 3. That's why.
Pam, I just saw David Wheaton flick his right foot Did you see anything?
Yeah, definitely. I noticed that. His foot just gave way a little bit. I think he was anticipating a forehand volley as he's coming up here, and then
Oh, there it is.
Yeah, a little awkward.
Those size 12s.
Oh,
Second serve ace. Ace number 3.
96 miles an hour in that second serve. It's nice to have one of these, isn't it?
Oh, yes, but you know, it's also embarrassing. You don't like to be aced on the second serve by a childhood rival.
Game point. Well, he was in trouble in that game, wasn't he? Break point against him. There's the, that's the speed gun that judges the speed of that serve.
But you know, Cliff, Wheaton talked about his aggressiveness.
Yeah.
But, you know, he won the U.S. Clay Court Championships.
He sure did.
And you can't do that.
Kiowa Island last year.
Right, you can't do that entirely serving and volleying.
Oh, an ace that will come back. He'll have to serve a second serve now because of the foot fault call. Lance Person making that call.
Oh, should be a warning here.
That'll be a warning.
Listen for it. There it is. Look at this baseball swing here off the back end. Look. He's got good form. He knew he was going to draw a warning. That doesn't cost him anything now, but he's got to watch it now. Otherwise, the next one, he'll get a sanction.
Well, Miami wants a major league team. They're in the running. Sign this guy up. It's one of those friendly warnings. Still works.
I don't think it should mean as much if you hit one out with a grip. I really don't.
I agree. Plus, it's not as if it was done in just mortal anger either, was it?
I kicked one out one time and I got a warning for it, and I had no idea I was going to kick it that far.
Oh, fine shot. On his heels that entire point. Courier, though, came back. And an important point would have given him love 30 on his serve if he hadn't have made it.
Cross-court approach shot, dangerous in and of itself. Goes down on his knees, genuflect on the right knee. 15 all.
That topspin lob or any lob's got to be hit very well against David Wheaton. He's 6'4", and he's a tall man with a long reach.
But he is penetrating the court so well today, especially when it matters.
You know, he's been doing that really for the last 10 days. He's
just, I mean, the power is awesome.
Until he got to college, he was basically a baseline player. I mean, he was a defensive style player, and it shows that backhand is a great shot. And you tend to lose sight of that now. Then he got to college and he started to serve and volley because, of course, all college matches are played on hard courts, and serve and volley is the best game for that surface. But it doesn't mean he's got an all-court game.
And I'll tell you, that big forehand that Courier hit down 15-30 that he hit a clean winner on was huge. If he had missed that, he would have been down 2 break points. Wow, what a gutsy play that was.
Game point. on serve in the second set. It's 3 games to 2. First set to David Wheaton. 6 games to 4. We're on serve. Eight of 11. Good percentage for Jim Courier. Hasn't come in near as many times as David Wheaton, who bores in every chance he gets. At 56% he is. Statistics courtesy of IBM, who are the sponsors, of course, the overall sponsors of the ATP Tour. And it sure helps to have someone like that involved, because they get, I mean, you get stats now in tennis matches and tournaments that we've never had before.
And Arthur, you picked that double fault on the changeover, didn't you?
Unfortunately, no one heard it except you.
Yeah, but I can remind everyone that you said so.
I'll second that.
No, I felt it.
He said, I'm looking for a double fault from Wheaton. Race for number 1 on the rankings here in the IBM ATP Tour. Edberg leads it still. Beckett overtook him after the Australian Open, but for just a very few weeks. Lendl then behind them. Agassi now will change with Forget after this tournament, because it has not been a good season for Agassi yet. Pete Sampras is also on the downward path at this point. He's had so many injuries. Goran Ivanisevic of Yugoslavia and Emilio Sanchez of Spain. Sanchez lost here to Stefan Edberg in the quarterfinals, and then Wheaton beat Edberg in straight sets to get to where he is now. Miami International Airport, not too far from the stadium. Miami is at the crossroads between South and North America. 30 all.
And the reason why, Arthur, I think you picked double faults in this game is because in the tournament, David Wheaton served 14 up till today and only 2 in this match so far. So now he's got 4 for the match.
That was part of it. And it's also one of the reasons I'm sticking my neck out a little bit. And he was ranked number 46 coming into this tournament. That was an ace just inside the line. As aggressive as David Wheaton would like to be, there are times when you just have to be able to temporize.
Mary Jo Fernandez had a successful tournament here. Among others, she beat Pam Shriver, got to the semifinal of the women's singles. She lives here in the Miami area.
Just won the doubles today.
Right.
That's another ace.
Along with Zina Garrison. Novogena Novotna and Gigi Fernandez, another ace, as you say. That's 5 aces in this match for Wheaton.
And very seldom will the chair umpire overrule a ball on the far sideline. Can't see it that well.
And going back to Mary Jo very quickly, as Jim Courier is about to show David Wheaton new tennis balls, there's quite a little rumors going around that maybe David Wheaton and Mary Jo Fernandez have a little romance going on, but neither one will confirm or deny it.
Well, they know one another. That reminded me, Cliff, of one of the best shots the game has ever seen, and it was Pancho Segura's last-minute backhand lob, which he could do at a moment's notice, a second's notice. One of the great shots in the game, in addition to his two-handed forehand.
One of the great players, one of the great personalities, the Chichi Rodriguez of tennis.
30.
Has more good lines than...
Yes, he does.
It's one of bowling's Triple Crown $200,000 PBA National Championship next Saturday here on ABC Sports as we move to Toledo, Ohio for that event. Then at 4:30 Central Time, one of golf's jewels, the Nabisco Dinah Shore from Palm Springs. That's 4:30 Eastern, 3:30 Central. Courier holds on serve, 4-3, and we'll be back to the Lipton, Florida, at the International Tennis Center. The Lipton Players Championship match. Jim Courier has 14 winners to David Wheaton's 25. The score 4-3 Courier. We're on serve. This is Wheaton to serve in the second set. Wheaton won the first 6-4. Double faults catching up with him now.
Yeah, but it wasn't so much because I thought he had 14 in the tournament up till today. It's just that his shots have a relatively low margin of error. When he hits a ball so flat, you're just going to miss some balls.
5 for Wheaton, 3 for Courier.
Wow, that was a nervous, silly shot. It wasn't that difficult of a volley. It was hit hard, but it was hit right at him. He tried to play a drop volley.
Yeah, well, if you want to call it that, it's the second one he's hit this match. The first one being that drop shot attempt in the first set, but now that motion was off the rails. He's fishing now. He's got to find his motion again.
Oh my goodness!
You could tell by the motion of the first serve, it's just out of sync, and that again, partly explained by the fact that he's so tall, 6'4". It's tough to coordinate all of that sometimes.
2 double faults in this game, 6 in the match. Love 43 break points for Courier at 4-3 second set.
Well, this is when it would be a good time to put in second serves first. Why keep daring yourself when your rhythm's off? Get that first serve in. Take a little off it.
That's wide.
Brother John and Stan Smith behind him. Jim Courier on an 11-match winning streak. He's beaten Andre Agassi last tournament out in Indian Wells, Sanchez, and Guy Forget. That is long, and he has broken David Wheaton's serve. 5-3. And it's Courier to serve for the second set. He lost the first, 6-4.
And David Wheaton now is unzipping his racket bag and getting out another racket. He also, after he missed his first serve on that last point, he said, keep your head up.
This is only Jim Courier's 3rd ever final. He won in Basel, Switzerland, beating Stefan Edberg. That was in '89. And after that, it was a drought of finals for him until the last tournament at Indian Wells, where he beat Guy Forget in the final in 5 sets. Wheaton's only ever played one final. He beat Mark Kaplan last year at Kiowa Island for the U.S. clay courts. 15 love.
That's going to be a 114-mile-an-hour serve there. No wonder Wheaton had a little trouble reaching it with his two-handed backhand. Courier said, woo, nice volley. It's always easy to hit good first volleys off faults, isn't it?
No pressure.
Oh. Good control on that two-handed backhand. Clean winner.
That is not an easy shot. Two hands down the line. The ball is hit inside out, as you could tell when the ball hit the ground. It skidded off to Wheaton's left over the high part of the net.
15 all. Two points from the second set as Jim Courier has improved his first serve percentages here in the second set. Remember, in the first set he was only at 41%. Now he's at 60%. Makes a big difference. Another first serve.
Yes. Sorry, Cliff. As we look at the first serve percentage, I was going to ask Pam. David Wheaton is still moving around behind the baseline, but Courier hasn't said a word.
Set point.
And set as another first serve off the racket of Jim Courier's goes for the winner. We're even at 1-all.
First game, third set. This final of the Lipton Players Championships, Courier and Wheaton. It's Wheaton to serve. Low. Second set statistics now.
First serve percentage, Wheaton below 60%, which I think is a magic number for him at 52. But unforced errors, 2-11. Courier much steadier in this second set. Wheaton has now switched from a cap to a headband. Found the range on that one.
Two unforced errors in the set. That's a heck of a statistic.
Watching this again now, the problem with the second serve, look where it bounces. About 1.5 yards inside the service line. You cannot do that against Jim Courier. Get away with it. Got to go deeper.
Good. And that is wide. 30-15.
Very calculated lob from David Wheaton, and Courier tries to flick it back over his left shoulder. And he really should have lobbed it back up. He knew that that was the wrong shot. He knew it.
Nice reaction. 30-15.
His reaction was, what am I doing?
Courier has not lost a match this year when it's gone to the ultimate stage. 3 sets, 6-0 this year. He wears that ATP Tour cap, by the way, because the players are allowed to wear only that cap. They can wear a cap, but if it has anything else on it, they've got to paste over it. It's one of the rules of the tour. They're allowed to have on their shoulders just one patch, advertising patch, but that's it.
Tell that to the PGA golfers.
Yeah. Is in the net. Very, very nearly got over. Break point for Courier, first game, third set.
Now Courier's left foot slipped, and watch, he's going to try to move to his right. And the left foot just slid all the way over, but he got away with it. Courier Wheaton rather missed the passing shot.
the first game against David Wheaton's serve, Jim Courier has 1 game to love in the third. We'll be back.
What's the dirtiest word in tennis? Backhand. No, from the moment they first touch a racket, people fear it. The brain just can't compute it. Says, all my life, I've been thinking left to right. Now you want me to work backwards. That's too hard. You know, at the Lipton International Players Championships, you're going to see some super backhands, but many of them started out a bit shaky, too. Just remember, the ball does not know you're hitting a forehand or a backhand. The ball does not know you're not wearing your lucky shorts. All the ball knows is how this racket meets it in 4 milliseconds. Now, here's what I do for that dreaded backhand. The secret's this space here. It's the same as the face on the racket. Now, if you can just keep this ring finger going straight, your backhand will devastate, even 2.
Courier serving, leading 1 game to love. Third set. Looking for a call on that. You could see him shrug his shoulders as he did not get a call on the baseline there. Courier going into that last point had won 16 of the last 20 points, 4 games on a trot. 16 of 21 now.
It reminds me of Lenny Dykstra without a wad of tobacco in his cheek. Just sort of he's restraining himself and really wants to let go.
Wheaton got himself to net in that last point, and he has not put the same pressure on Courier in the last set that he did in that first set.
Love 30. David Wheaton has played the big championships well. At the Australian, for example, he beat Goran Ivanisevic last year in the first round, losing to Stefan Edberg in the quarterfinals. And then he went on to Wimbledon, got to the round of 16 there, losing to Brad Gilbert. Beat Jonas Svensson the round before that. The US Open, he got to the quarterfinals, losing to McEnroe, all last year. Those results qualified him for the Grand Slam Cup. He beat Ivan Lendl in the first round there and took home a check for $450,000.
Wheaton taking a wide arced forehand swing at that return. Mishit.
Well, that was a great overhead, because I'll tell you, it's not that easy right now. The shadows have taken over the court now as the sun begins to set. The players are going to have to deal with changing light in this third set the entire time. That was not an easy overhead, and he just put it away like it was nothing.
Oh, we had a love 30 lead there. That has evaporated.
And at love 30, Wheaton failed to make the return in the court, which, Arthur, you pointed out earlier. You've got to do that in the big points. You've got to make the other guy play.
The top players all have great returns to serve. That's all there is to it. You've got to get the ball in the court on the big points.
Wheaton, an unseeded finalist. 32 players seeded here in this tournament.
Oh, it worked. It didn't work in the beginning of the first set. It worked right there. Caught Courier completely by surprise. It caught us by surprise, too.
Beautifully played. Watch this.
The last minute.
Turned the two-handed backhand into a one-handed backhand, takes the left hand off it, and it's a perfect drop shot. Return to serve was very close to the line. Jimmy Courier just will not backtrack, will he? It's so difficult to get him on his heels, so he half volleys the thing from the baseline and keeps himself in the point.
But you know, that's not an unusual shot for him.
No.
It looks like it's difficult, but the way he holds a racket with that Western grip, a triple pump. There's Jose Garris, just flown in from Palm Springs, California.
That's why.
Just wide.
Game point. And game for Courier, who now leads it by 2 games to love. By the way, he had that USTA player development cap on Jose Higueras. He is a part of that program. An announcement in this morning's paper, speculation because it's not finalized, but the USTA player development program may be moving down here to the Lifton when they build a new stadium. And of course the weather down here is so good all year, that's going to be a good move. There is a picture of the proposed new stadium here that will be completed for the tournament in 1993.
And the architects have been doing a great job. They've been going around and asking everyone from the players to the trainers to the TV people, what is it that you want in a stadium that would make it perfect? For instance, they came into the training room the other day, and the men and the women share a common training wall, actually, as we look at Butch Buckholt's tournament chairman. But they want to know everything, like how many massage tables do you want room for? And that's really neat.
Well, they may go take a look at Jim Westall's stadium at Yale University.
Under construction now.
Right.
Oh, Jim Courier has loved 30 in this game. He's dominating this 3rd set.
Gets on top of it.
See that way he moves over that ball, firm wrist when he makes contact with the thing, and low to high gets a terrific angle on it. And David Wheaton, as tall as he is and as good a reach as he has, wasn't near it. Love 30.
That's forced. Got away with it. I think, Pam, he's decided to take his chances and come to the net where he feels more comfortable. He just doesn't like being at the baseline. Even though, as we've said earlier, he's a national clay court champion, so we know he's got semblance of an all-court game, and I've seen him play enough to know that he really can trade shots back there at the baseline. Good serve.
But players like Courier weren't in that national clay court title that David Wheaton won.
No, but got to be pretty good to win the U.S. clay courts anyway. First time Courier took a chance on Wheaton's second serve. He moved to his left to open up the forehand side, and that's exactly where Wheaton went. That's the second serve. The second time he's aced him on second serve.
30 all in this game. It's a crucial game for the server here. 6 aces for Wheaton against 3 for Courier. Because he's down a break already. It's 2 games to love for Courier.
This is a huge point.
Wow. A very fluid motion from Wheaton. Reminds me a lot of Stan Smith's. He throws the ball up just a little higher and then leans into it.
He's got a very good motion. I like his motion a lot.
Game point. And another ace from David Wheaton, and it is Jim Courier who leads 2 games to 1 in the 3rd and final set. Arthur Ashe and Pam Shriver. This is the Lipton Players Championship men's singles final. You're watching Jim Courier of the USA playing David Wheaton, also of the USA. 2 games to 1. Courier leads with a break. He's serving in the 3rd set. This is championship match. Winner will take home $197,000. Make that $179,000.
There you see Pam on the forehand side. With the forehand, David Wheaton's got to figure out a way just to get the ball in the court. He's got to come up with a shot later on in his career that he'll be able just to depend on just to get the ball in the court, period.
Total purse of $1.2 million in the men's. $15 love.
Second.
to keep himself in that point. It wasn't quite enough, but well done.
He got to it, and very calmly and methodically, Wheaton replied with that forehand volley down the line.
I don't know. That forehand volley, to me, looked like he almost gagged it. And I also question why he played a lob volley when all he had to do was
step into it. Yeah.
Return down the middle. And Courier makes an unforced error there, which could turn into a very expensive one for him. 15-30 in this game, leading 2-1 in the third set.
He did look a little too placid, Pam, when Courier got to that ball just over the net.
Well, it almost looked like David Wheaton just wanted to run Courier to death on that one point. And I was thinking yesterday, I went in and I asked Bill Norris, ATP trainer, on the fitness of the two guys, if there are any injuries at all. He said, no, both are 100% healthy. And incidentally, Bill Norris yesterday, longtime ATP trainer, became a grandfather. First time, and he wanted to just pass on a welcome to Zoe Elizabeth Norris into the world.
Well done. He started out here in Miami. He lives in this area.
Coral Springs.
His first experience with tennis was World Team Tennis Florida Flamingos. But that's 15 years ago now. And he's been on the tour ever since. 30-all. Big return from David Wheaton, and he has break point.
And he has not broken since the first set. Arthur, is Wheaton going to come in on the second serve?
If it's to the forehand, maybe.
I think he should have come in on it regardless.
Now, he tried to chip that ground shot.
See, his backhand is really his best shot, and I think if he just blasted the backhand and followed it in and let Courier try and hit a pass instead, you could see how nervous he was on that following forehand.
Yeah, he was nervous, but seeing that chipped forehand, I wonder why doesn't he do that on the return of serve sometime? Much safer, and it would certainly increase or raise his return of serve percentage when he really needs to do that.
Deuce. Game point for Courier. Wheaton said that it was a big weight off his shoulders when he finally won a match here after an 0-4 start this year. The breaks, he said, went my way for a change. I was down match point against Kevin Curran. He lost the first set. Tiebreak of the second set. Curran had match points, and it was Wheaton who won that match, of course. And then he got a break against Perot's Roldan when he had to withdraw. He's got a lot of confidence now, but he's in trouble in this third set.
Well, Courier's upper break, but he's not really playing like he's upper break. He knows that Wheaton is a streaky player at times and can just get that break back and go upper break in a matter of about 5 minutes.
He's got so much control of that forehand, doesn't he? It's an Agassi-style forehand where he makes contact with the ball way out front of his body, and he's often in the air when he makes contact with it, and he generates some real good power on that forehand. North Carolina 75-72 over Temple. They're in the Final Four. And Duke 78-61 over St. John's.
3-1 Courier. Fifth time means 6 years for Duke in the Final Four. Kind of a delicate drop volley for him. Courier in the second set, unforced errors just 2, and in this third set he's only made 1 so far, and we're in game 5. Those are good numbers for him. Oh, what was he trying to do there?
It looked like he was trying to fake out David Wheaton as if he were going to hit a lob and then go short cross court. David didn't fall for that. Don't forget, Cliff, these guys have played each other maybe 1,000,000 times in practice.
Yes, they were at the Volunteers Academy up in Bradenton together for years. Practiced together a lot. I guess he was there at the same time. 30-15.
One of those where you get the ball exactly where you want it.
See how he's about 4, 5, 6 inches off the ground when he makes contact with their forehand.
Same thing that Steffi Graf does with her forehand when it goes in. Even when it doesn't go in.
Yeah, but your timing has got to be perfect, so don't try that at home. It's easy to make contact if your feet are on the ground. 30 all, 2 points in a row here for Courier. Wheaton had 30 love in this game. Courier hit 3-1. He got it. Break point for a second break for Courier. Perfect topspin lob.
Certainly was.
Sometimes it's so smart to wait for the bigger point to play the lob. He didn't play the lob earlier in the game, and Wheaton made the volley. Wheaton looks like he kind of wanted to let it go, but I think he was just wishing.
Deuce. 9 aces. This is where the sports psychologist, Cliff, the last few years, working very closely with all these top-ranked players, get the players to focus on staying composed. You're not out of it. You're only down 1 break.
They got sports psychologists. They got strength trainers.
Oh, you name it.
They got coaches.
Dietitians.
Dietitians. It's wild.
See, you could have been a better player.
Yeah, stations know that they will be getting a station break after this next changeover, and we will stay with this match until its conclusion. 3-1 Courier. This is Wheaton serving. Game point Wheaton, third set. Championship set for the Lipton for the year. Called wide.
And it was.
3-2. Jim Courier with a break in the third set. We'll be back to the Lipton Players Championship after this from our ABC stations. Cliff Drysdale with Arthur Ashe and Pam Schreiber. We are watching the final match of the Lipton Players Championship for this year. From the International Tennis Center on Key Biscayne, our live coverage continues as David Wheaton of the USA is playing against Jim Courier of the USA. Courier leading 3-2 with a break. He's serving in the third set. The players traded early breaks of serve in the first set. David Wheaton won that 6-4. Courier came back, won the second set behind almost errorless tennis in the second set. Only 2 unforced errors in that set. He won that 6-3. He's ahead now 3-2 with the serve love 15.
Even though Courier is up a break, it feels like it's about even. Too early in this set to have any real momentum for Courier.
That's long.
Now,
Love 30.
Second game in a row that David Wheaton has had love 30, and on the last game he missed a forehand return of serve. He's going to want to make a playback on this, and also they have turned the lights on here.
And Pam, if I were David Wheaton now, I wouldn't want to miss any returns. Get every single return in the court.
Points for David Wheaton at 3-2 in the third set. North Carolina is through to the Final Four over Temple, 75-72. Duke over St. John, 78-61.
Pam, what happened there down there when David Wheaton was talking to the umpire?
He was questioning the serve of Courier, just wondering about whether or not it was good or not. When you win the point, who cares? Just get on with it. 3 break points now.
Break point. In a very evenly contested match. David Wheaton was unseeded going into this tournament. 32 players seeded in the championship. Ranked in the 40s going into this after his results here, though, including a win in the semifinals over Edberg. He'll be in the 20s when the next computer ranking comes out.
Haven't had a double fault from Courier in quite a while now.
So the break of serve for David Wheaton. We're back on serve, dead even in the third set. 1 set all and 3 games all in the third. Wheaton's 21, Jimmy Courier 20 years old.
We talked earlier, Cliff, about composure when you're down, as David Wheaton was for a while. His match stats didn't look too good in that second set, and he started off poorly in the third, but he's back in it. Confidence so important in a match like this on a fast court. It's the Wheatons, John in the right, his father in the back.
Bruce had a good week. He beat Andre Agassi, who was a number 3 seed here. Then Cristiano Carratti, the Karate Kid from Italy, in 3 sets. Then Edberg. That's good. Wheaton knew it the minute he hit it. He'd love to have that one again. Hit it right into Courier's racket. And he could have gone almost anywhere. $15 all.
That was a good recovery after that point where David Wheaton really should have won it. Sometimes psychologically it's very difficult to come back and serve the next point. He made sure of it with the win. So now he's 30-15. And the seagulls are moving in.
David Wheaton looks up at them. (30-15) Wheaton. First was in so much trouble earlier in this set. He had 3 games to 1, trailed 3 games to 1, and break point. But has made a comeback. It's 3 games all now.
David Wheaton does not chip his returns. I've never seen him chip one on the forehand. I'm probably sure he has, but of course, being two-handed on the backhand side, probably almost never, unless he lets that left hand drop.
One of the two-handed players, very few of them has ever been able to come under the ball.
That's right.
Oh. Break point for Courier. Remember, he had a break earlier, as I just said, and he had a break point, didn't convert. Watch this.
Courier sort of knew it was coming. Look where he's standing, inside the baseline when he finished the shot.
Not that easy to serve Courier into the body, is it? Because he has that baseball swing on the backhand side. Most other players would have a lot of difficulty with that.
You've got to get the first serve in now, Cliff. Oh, he had to get, and he went for it. Look at him. He's pulling his shirt out as if he knew that was a very important point. He took a gamble on that shot. I mean, because if he had missed that, Courier would have had a bread and butter shot for him on the second serve.
7 break points.
Oh!
This is the 8th break point now for Jim Courier. He's broken 3 times.
Now, Pam, that's one of those shots that is half a forehand volley and half an overhead.
Well, that was without a doubt. That was going to be a forehand volley, but the forehand volley of Wheaton does go off. I've seen it go off before. That was his worst volley mistake of the match. At the worst time, 3-all in the third at deuce. Break point now.
Missed that one. Courier is waiting for a backhand. Flick it cross court.
And a double fault from David Wheaton. That's double fault number 7 from Wheaton. It is Jim Courier who will serve now, leading 4-3 in the 3rd set. Courier given a free gift here, and that's what he thinks about that. And then looks over at his section of the crowd. Wheaton and Courier playing in the final. See how Courier got to the final. He beat Richie Renneberg, bottom of your screen, in the semifinals. In the quarterfinals, Jim Courier over Derek Rostagno, and before that he beat Guy Forget, one of the hottest players on the tour. David Wheaton, on the other hand, beat Stefan Edberg at the top of your screen. He beat him in straight sets. He beat Cristiano Carratti, the number 28 seed from Italy, and before that he beat Andre Agassi. They've been playing for exactly 2 hours now. We're at the International Tennis Center on Key Biscayne. Jim Courier has a break in the 3rd set. For the 2nd time he had a break and then let it slip. David Wheaton came back. 4-3 with Courier to serve on Cliff Drysdale, with Arthur Ashe and Pam Shriver. $179,000 will go to the winner. The finalists have already picked up $94,200, as you see, to get to the semifinals here. Just about $50,000, $26,000 for the last 8 in this championship. $1.2 million in all. And as important, of course, the ATP IBM points. Because those are the things that put you either right up at the top of the world on the computer, get you seeded in the major championships, and indeed into events. 4-3 Courier serving, final set.
but he tried to go over the highest part of the net. Paid the price for it. I thought he was going to play a lob because Wheaton was closing in, actually. Stuck up there. He certainly couldn't run back.
That is long on the return. Courier can't buy a first serve again. Remember, he had trouble with that in the first set. The second set, he got a lot better. Now, he is only at 36% on first serve attempts here in the third set, and it's hurting him. He's been broken.
Pam, this is what I... Excuse me, Cliff.
Sorry.
I was going to say, Pam, this is what I mean. He's down a break. He's got to get the return, and he went for a winner. Didn't make it, so it's 15-all.
Yeah, he missed the return by about a half inch, and if he had made it, he would have won the point. It is a fine line as to how much you gamble on your return of serves. If he doesn't gamble, Courier's going to be all over him.
You're watching the final of the Lipton Championships for this year. Cliff Dreiser with Arthur Ashe and Pam Shriver. Jim Courier ahead here in the third set. Best of 3-set match this year. It's 30-15 in this game. 4-3 for Courier. 20-year-old from Dade City. Excuse me.
I was just going to say, Wheaton's got to create openings to get to net. He's got to force to get himself up there. Because he is not good from back there, particularly off the forehand wing. Courier loves this. This is Courier is playing right into his hand. Backcourt rallies.
Game point, Courier.
And Wheaton generally can only hit his forehand in third or fourth gear. He just has trouble downshifting, but if he's ever on, he's very dangerous.
That is long. Courier holds on and leads now 5-3. He's within 1 game of the championship here at the Lipton, won last year by Andre Agassi over Stefan Edberg. It was the start of a great year for Andre Agassi. He went on to get to the final of the French Championships and indeed the U.S. Open. And to some extent, both of the players that you're looking at now were overshadowed by his efforts last year, by those of Michael Chang and, of course, Pete Sampras, who also won the U.S. Open. These two are making their move now. That's wide.
Well, now when you're 3-5 and a player like Wheaton, most of the time you're in a mode of, I got nothing to lose.
Well, I like the fact that Courier went for that last return. It always helps if you end up losing the return game that you've swung from the hip, so you're loose and relaxed for your service game. He doesn't want to play tentative in this game at all.
Been some great serving from David Wheaton. 10 aces in this match. 118 miles an hour, as you see. Game point. Jim Courier will try to make it 2 tournaments in a row. He won at Indian Wells last tournament and will serve for the match when we come back. Back to our scouting report, Arthur Ashe, and see whether this match turned out as we expected before it all began. On serve, you gave it to David Wheaton.
I did, but his service let him down a few times here when it really did matter. Of course, return of serve, I think, is the key here now. I thought the key stat for the entire match was David Wheaton to get 60% at least of his first serves in.
Ground strokes of Jimmy Courier have made a big difference here. The intangibles, I think, have also been a factor because he's a gutsy competitor. How do you see it all, Pam?
Well, at this stage, Courier just looks like a player who will not lose. He won the Palm Springs tournament, defeating Guy Forget 7-6 in the 5th before this. And listen to the crowd.
The Lipton title is at stake. It is indeed on Jim Courier's racket. He will serve for the title here. Live coverage from Key Biscayne.
Whoa, he's going for it. He's not going to play safe. Well, the over-under, which I thought would be very important, is right on the button for Wheaton, 60%. The problem is, though, that he's only won 38% of his second serves, and that really has made the difference. Wheaton is losing this game rather than having Jim Courier win it.
30 love. Championship point for Jim Courier. He feels like it's all over. He has 3 points on his serve to close out 21-year-old David Wheaton from Minnesota for the title here at the Lipton.
And his coach, Jose Garris, would not have liked such a joyous reaction. You got to wait till the match is over, but he does have 3 match points.
But that's Courier. That's the way he is.
Acknowledging his family and his coaching staff, Jim Courier has won his 2nd tournament in a row here at the Lipton as they exchange a friendly handshake. David Wheaton losing in straight sets. And Jim Courier rushes over to his section to enjoy this win alongside them. In 3 sets, Jim Courier 6-4 in the 3rd set over David Wheaton. And we will be back with an interview with the winner. And we thank you for joining us and wish you a very good day. From Arthur Ashe and Pam Shriver, I'm Cliff Drysdale. Goodbye, everybody.
Lipton International Tennis Championships has been brought to you by Lipton Iced Tea. This is refreshment that's one of a kind. This is Lipton Tea Time. By IBM. Whatever your size, whatever your needs, IBM is working to bring you the best solution. By Adidas Equipment. Everything that is essential and nothing that is not. And by Lipton Side Dish. Enjoy the delicately seasoned taste of Lipton noodles and sauce and Lipton rice and sauce. This has been a presentation of ABC Sports, recognized around the world as the leader in sports television.
What an effort from Jim Courier, who has won his 2nd title in a row, 6-4 in the 3rd set over David Wheaton, and he is now at courtside with Pam Shriver. Pam?
Well, congratulations, Jim Courier. Said it looked like your concentration was a bit off. What did you do to straighten things out?
Well, first set I was a little bit nervous inside, and it just took me a few games. David and I didn't really have any long rallies in the first couple of games in the set, so I really didn't get warmed up until kind of the end of the first set. And then I calmed down inside, the butterflies subsided, and I just kind of played within myself a little bit there until, of course, the end.
A little psychological warfare in the first set. You told David to quit moving, or why was he moving so much? You all go back a few years. Anything in the history there?
Well, we're great friends, but you know, it's just like I don't really try and do anything that's going to disturb him in the match, you know, intentionally. And I felt that maybe he was doing that a little bit intentionally to disturb my serve. And you know, I just said, you know, David, what are you doing? You know, what's going on there? And he said he wasn't doing anything. And he admitted his guilt by saying, I'm not doing anything. So that kind of cleared that up a little bit.
Well, 12 straight matches now, going back to the Palm Springs win. What does this mean for you the rest of the year?
Well, it's a real big confidence booster. And of course, I'm going down to the Davis Cup tomorrow. And, you know, that's the biggest honor that I've had as to yet is to play for my country. And, you know, I'm real confident going into there. And if I can play within myself, I think that we're going to have a real good chance down there.
When you go to Mexico City, you're going to be playing at high altitude. You ever played at altitude before?
Yes, I've played at altitude, not quite as high as there. We play up in Stratton Mountain, which is about 4,000 feet. I understand Mexico City is what, about 7,000, 8,000?
Yeah, exactly.
So, you know, it'll take me probably 2 days to get used to it, but I'm sure that I'll get it together by Friday.
And you had two coaches today watching you.
Yeah.
Explain that situation.
Well, I've been working with Jose Higueras when I'm off the road primarily, but because he has a family, he doesn't travel too much. So my traveling coach, they're both with the USTA player development system. I have Brad Stein, who travels with me, and we started in Australia, went to Philly and to Memphis, and he was here with me all week. And then Jose said earlier in the week if I made the final, he was going to catch a plane in. So he came in, so I had twice as much help today.
Well, looking to the rest of the year, do you feel there's a Grand Slam tournament that you can really point to and have a good shot at winning?
Well, I'm going for all three of them. I think the French Open is going to be my best opportunity, although I'm playing awfully well on the hard courts right now, so the U.S. Open's not out of the question either. Wimbledon, I hope to go as good as I can go, but you just don't know.
Well, Jim Courier, congratulations on a great win here at Lipton. Cliff?
Thank you very much, Pam. It is Jim Courier in 3 sets. He lost the first set to David Wheaton and came back and then won the next two, 6-3, 6-4 for the crown here at the International Tennis Center on Key Biscayne. Arthur Ashe, as he was saying, a heck of a confidence booster for him going in not only the Davis Cup, but I was interested to hear him talking about the potential for Grand Slam championships. He's not happy, as a matter of fact, on the grass, I don't think.
No, we saw him play at Wimbledon last year, but I think he's still improving. He's only 20 years of age. His best tennis is ahead of him, and this is terrific match play experience for him.
He'll be just short of the top 10 players in the world, Arthur. 2 wins like this back-to-back, yes, they're a confidence booster. But does it mean that Jim Courier is going to be a real contender for like a top 5, you think, in the next year or so?
It's tough to say. I still think his game is rather streaky and is not as steady as the games of players like Becker and Edberg and Lendl and so forth. But then again, you know, if you hit a hot streak, you think of yourself as being a better player, and he might be able to parlay that into success in the big events.
You'd think just from a technical or mechanical standpoint, he could get into the net a little more often than he does?
We all think that he should go to the net a bit more. Of course, his game is built around his baseline play, but he's got very good coaches with the USTA and so forth, and I think they're going to work on his weaknesses, and the Davis Cup's going to help.
Now, how about David Wheaton? He had an outstanding week. He had some terrific results. He beat Andre Agassi. He also beat Stefan Edberg. So here's a guy who's going to be in the top 20 players in the world when this is all over, Arthur, and he's playing very good aggressive tennis.
He really is. He has just gone through one of those spikes in his game where he should think of himself as being a better player. He has to learn to downshift. He's got to play some of the big points a bit more temperately. He can't take as big a chance as he's been taking, but he also, like Courier, is improving.
What an occasion here for Jim Courier, serving here in the 3rd set. This is match point against David Wheaton. Remember that Jim Courier won the Indian Wells event, and here is match point for his 2nd event on the tour in a row. And Arthur, remember this also, that for Jim Courier, he had won one tournament only. That was back in '89. He did not win a tournament last year, and now he comes here with back-to-back wins. The confidence is a factor. He is playing extremely well, and for my money, here is a man who will be a contender in almost every tournament that he plays in. Let us go down to Pam Shriver, who has a comment on all of the goings on. Pam?
Well, it's been a very exciting 2 days of tennis. Yesterday you had Monica Seles defeat Gabriela Sabatini. I saw her in the training room afterwards with heat stroke. And then today you get 2 guys fighting for the top 10 positions, particularly Courier and they battle till 6-4 in the third. There's so many players out there that can win in a given week, and I'm just happy to still be playing and to work sometimes doing this. It's been fun.
Pam, thank you very much. Arthur, what about the women? You know, they were as exciting, if not more exciting, than the men's field.
No question. This week, week and a half, I should say, they clearly were more exciting than the men. And I think, again, like Courier and David Wheaton, the best tennis is ahead of them for this year as well.
They have come a long way, haven't they? Monica Seles yesterday winning the women's. Today, David Wheaton losing in the final match. And we have two new winners on this tour. For Arthur Ashe and for Pam Shriver, I'm Cliff Drysdale. Thanks a lot for joining us, everybody. Jim Courier today in 3 sets over David Wheaton in the final.
Supériorité française en Coupe Davis. La France a battu Israël 5-0. Aujourd'hui, le compte que vous apercevez sur ces images l'a emporté face à Bloom 6-3, 7-5. Avant lui, Forget avait facilement battu Mansdorf 6-4, 6-2. Prochain match en mai à Nîmes face à l'équipe d'Australie. Ça sera autrement plus difficile. En cyclisme, l'Irlandais Stephen Roche fait un retour très remarqué en tête.
Year beating top-ranked Monica Seles for the U.S. Hardcourt Championship. And finally, one other note from the ladies golf tour. Amy
is the #1 tennis player in the world. Well, at San Antonio this afternoon, she beat the new #1 Monica Seles 6-4, 6-3 to take the women's hardcourt championship.